He announced the pregnancy publicly, but why panic over paperwork unless he planned something?
He dropped to his knees the second he opened the envelope, right there between the folding chairs, hands shaking, face completely drained. This was my daughter Sophia's graduation. I was still standing in the aisle, and my husband David had just walked in holding another woman's hand. Before we continue, please hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell for updates. She's pregnant, he'd said loud enough for the rows behind us to hear. People turned, whispered, stared at me like I was the last to know. I smiled. I actually smiled, and told him, "Congratulations." But then the principal called my daughter's name, the crowd started clapping, and David suddenly choked out, "You can't do this, not here." I tilted my head, calm, steady, because he hadn't even reached the last page yet. A breeze pushed through the rows of chairs, lifting the edges of the graduation programs, but no one moved. The applause kept going loud, celebratory, but it felt distant, like it belonged to a different moment entirely. David was still on his knees, right in front of me. The envelope hung loosely in his grip, pages slipping halfway out, his fingers no longer steady enough to hold them together. His eyes darted across the lines again, like rereading them might somehow change what they said. "David," Lila whispered, her voice tight, confused. She stepped closer, one hand instinctively resting on her stomach. "What is it? What did she give you?" He didn't answer her. He didn't even look at her. Instead, he looked up at me, really looked this time. Not the dismissive glance he'd given me when he walked in, not the confident, almost rehearsed expression from a few minutes ago. This was different. This was fear. Behind him, people had stopped pretending not to watch. Heads turned openly now. A few parents leaned forward in their seats. Someone 2 rows back raised their phone just a little higher. And over all of it, Sophia's name echoed through the speakers again. "Sophia Marquez?" The applause swelled, louder this time, insistent. My chest tightened for a split second. Not because of David, because of her. I turned my head toward the stage just in time to see Sophia step forward, her gown shifting as she moved, her face lit with that mix of pride and nerves she'd carried all morning. For a moment, she didn't notice what was happening behind her. For a moment, she still had her day. I held on to that. Then I looked back down at David. "You should stand up," I said quietly, my voice even, controlled. "You're making a scene." His jaw tightened. "You think I'm making a scene?" He shot back, but the edge in his voice didn't land the way he intended. It cracked halfway through. Lila's eyes flicked between us. "David, what's going on?" she asked again, more urgently now. "You're scaring me." He finally turned toward her, but only for a second, long enough to open his mouth and then close it again. Because he couldn't explain it? Not without explaining everything. I watched the realization hit him in real time. "You said you wanted this out in the open," I added softly. "Remember?" His gaze snapped back to mine. "Not like this." A small pause settled between us. "Not like this." That was the problem, wasn't it? He had planned this moment, just not the outcome. Around us, the ceremony kept moving forward. Another name was called, another wave of applause. But it all felt detached now, like we were standing inside a separate space carved out of the same room. "Mom?" The voice cut through everything. I turned. Sophia stood at the edge of the row now, diploma in hand, her expression caught somewhere between confusion and disbelief. Her eyes moved from me to David to Lila, and then down to the papers scattered at his knees. "What's happening?" she asked. Simple question. No easy answer. David pushed himself up slightly, one knee still on the ground, like he couldn't fully commit to standing. "Sophia, hey, sweetheart, it's nothing, just a misunderstanding." Even now, even here. He was still trying to control it. Sophia frowned. "Why are you on the floor?" He let out a short breath, almost a laugh, but it didn't carry. "I dropped something, that's all." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. Because Sophia's eyes had already shifted back to me. And she knew me well enough to read the silence. "What did you give him?" she asked, quieter now. The question lingered. Lila looked at me too, her earlier confidence gone, replaced with something sharper, unease, maybe even suspicion. David reacted instantly. "It doesn't matter," he said quickly, too quickly. He started gathering the papers, stacking them with shaky hands. "It's just paperwork." Then why do you look like that? Sophia pressed. He froze. Just for a second, but it was enough. The truth was sitting there, right in front of all of us, pressing against the edges of what he could still deny. You need to stop, he said under his breath, leaning closer to me now, his voice dropping so only I could hear. Whatever this is, stop. We'll talk about it later. I met his eyes, steady. There is no later, I replied. His grip tightened on the documents. You don't understand what you're doing. A flicker of something passed through me then, not anger, not panic, clarity. I understand exactly what I'm doing. Another name echoed through the speakers. More applause, more movement around us. But our row stayed locked in place. Sophia's voice came again, sharper this time. Dad, what is in those papers? He didn't answer. He couldn't. Because if he said it out loud, if he even tried to explain a fraction of it, the entire narrative he had just staged would collapse in seconds. Lila took a small step back, her hand slipping from his arm. David, she said, slower now, cautious. That was new. That distance. He noticed it too. And that's when the panic really set in. His eyes dropped back to the last page, the one he hadn't wanted to reach, the one he'd hoped didn't exist. I watched him read it again. Line by line, his lips moved silently. Then, no, he whispered, barely audible. But I heard it. So did Sophia. And this time, when he looked up at me, there was no confusion left. Only one question. What did you do? He thought he was walking into control, but he'd been stepping into this for months. David didn't just appear at the graduation like that by accident. He had timed it. I knew that now. The way he walked in late, deliberate, drawing just enough attention, he wanted people to notice. He wanted a moment. And he got one. Just not the one he planned. A few rows back, someone whispered again, louder this time. That's her husband, right? Another voice answered, with the pregnant girl? The words carried. They always do in quiet spaces like this. Sophia stood frozen beside me, still holding her diploma, her fingers tightening around the edges of it like she needed something solid to anchor herself. Mom, she said again, more quietly now, what is going on? I didn't answer immediately, because there were too many layers to that question. And because the man in front of us, still half kneeling, still clutching papers he didn't want anyone else to see, had spent the last year making sure I would be the one left without answers. That part hadn't gone according to his plan either. It hadn't always been this obvious. A year ago, David was just distant. Not cruel, not reckless, just slightly out of reach. He worked later, took more calls outside, started guarding his phone in a way he never had before. Subtle things. Easy to explain away if you wanted to. And I did. For a while. Because after 20 years, you don't jump straight to betrayal. You negotiate with doubt first. You tell yourself stories that feel easier to live with. He's stressed. It's work. It's temporary. But then came the small inconsistencies. A dinner he said he had with a client, except the restaurant charged for 2 identical meals and a bottle of wine he never mentioned. A weekend conference that didn't show up on the company's public schedule. A receipt tucked into his jacket pocket from a medical office prenatal, stamped clearly at the top. I remember holding that receipt in the kitchen, staring at it longer than I should have. And then putting it back? Because picking a fight without certainty felt like losing control. And David always needed control. That was the part people didn't see. To everyone else, he was composed, successful, the one who handled everything: finances, decisions, long-term planning. He liked being the one who knew more, who managed more, who decided more. I let him, not because I couldn't do those things, but because it kept the peace. At least, that's what I told myself. Mom, Sophia pressed again, pulling me back to the present. Why is Dad acting like this? David shot me a look sharp, warning, the same look he used in private when he didn't want something said out loud. It didn't carry the same weight anymore. He dropped something important, I said calmly. Not a lie. Just not the part he was afraid of. His jaw flexed. Elena, he said under his breath, stop. I ignored him. Because this didn't start today. This started months ago, when the doubt finally stopped feeling like doubt. I didn't confront him then. I didn't argue. I didn't accuse. I started paying attention. Carefully, quietly. And what I found wasn't just an affair. It was planning. Structured, intentional, patient. Late night calls that weren't emotional, they were logistical. Transfers between accounts that didn't align with our usual finances. Documents he asked me to just glance over and sign, always when he was rushing out the door. That was the moment everything shifted. Because David wasn't just pulling away. He was preparing to leave. Sophia looked between us again, her confusion turning into something sharper, now frustration, maybe even anger. "Can someone just tell me what's happening?" she demanded. David stood up fully this time, quickly gathering the papers against his chest, like shielding them could undo what they meant. "It's nothing," he said firmly, forcing steadiness back into his voice. "We're not doing this here. Not doing this here." The same man who walked in holding another woman's hand, announcing her pregnancy in the middle of our daughter's graduation. Now he wanted privacy. I let out a small breath. "You already did this here," I said. That landed. Harder than anything else so far. Because it was true. And everyone within earshot knew it. His composure slipped again, just a crack, but enough. And for the first time since he walked in, David looked uncertain. Like he wasn't entirely sure what I knew, or how far this was about to go. He glanced down at the envelope again, then back at me. And this time, there was no control in his voice when he asked. The question hung between us tight, dangerous. "How long?" he asked again, quieter this time. Not "how long have you been upset?" Not "how long have you known about her?" He knew exactly what he was asking. I met his gaze without hesitation. Long enough. That was all I gave him. But it was enough to make his grip on the papers tighten again. Behind him, Lila shifted uncomfortably. "David, what does that mean?" she asked, her voice thinner now, the earlier confidence gone completely. "What is she talking about?" He didn't respond. Because now, answering her meant exposing himself. And for the first time, I could see it clearly, he hadn't planned for that. The whispers around us weren't even subtle anymore. "Something's wrong. Those look like legal documents." Did she just hand him divorce papers? Close, but not quite. Sophia took a step closer to us, her eyes locked on the envelope. "Dad," she said, more firmly now, "what did Mom give you?" David exhaled sharply, trying to reset, trying to rebuild whatever version of control he thought he still had. "It's just paperwork," he repeated, but this time it sounded hollow, even to him. I tilted my head slightly. "Then show her." His head snapped toward me. No. Too fast. Too defensive. And that one word did more damage than anything I could have said. Sophia's expression shifted immediately. "Why not?" He hesitated. That hesitation stretched just a second too long. And in that second, everything started to tilt. Because David had always been quick, decisive, certain. Now he looked like he was calculating and losing. "It's private," he said finally, but the explanation came late and weak. "Private?" Sophia repeated, disbelief creeping in. "You bring someone here," she gestured sharply toward Lila, "tell everyone she's pregnant, and this is what you call private?" A few heads nearby turned even faster at that. Lila's face flushed. "I didn't," he said. She started, then stopped, realizing she was stepping into something she didn't understand. David ran a hand through his hair, tension finally breaking through the surface. "This isn't the place for this conversation." "You're right," I said calmly, "but you chose the place." That landed again. Harder this time. Because now, it wasn't just about me anymore. It was about the audience. The setting. The fact that he had tried to control the narrative in public and lost it in the same space. His eyes dropped back to the papers, like they might rearrange themselves if he looked long enough. "They're wrong," he muttered, almost to himself. This doesn't make sense." That was new. And important. Sophia caught it immediately. "What doesn't make sense?" He didn't answer her. Instead, he flipped through the pages again, faster now, scanning, searching for something, anything that would give him background. But there was nothing there for him. Only what had already been done. Lila stepped closer again, her voice sharper now, anxiety bleeding through. "David, you're not answering me. What is in those documents?" He turned to her, and for the first time, there was irritation. in his expression, not at me. At her. Just give me a minute, he snapped. She recoiled slightly, her hand instinctively returning to her stomach. That shift didn't go unnoticed. Not by me. Not by Sophia. And definitely not by the people watching. Sophia's voice came again, quieter now but steadier. Mom, did he do something? I looked at her. Really looked at her. At the confusion, the embarrassment, the slow realization building behind her eyes. And I chose my words carefully. He made some decisions, I said, without telling us. David let out a short, disbelieving laugh. That's how you're framing this? I didn't react. Because he hadn't reached the part yet that mattered most. He shook his head, stepping closer to me now, lowering his voice again. You went through my accounts? There it was. Not denial. Confirmation. Careful, I said quietly. You're starting to answer your own questions. His expression hardened, but beneath it, panic was spreading faster now. Those accounts aren't what you think, he said quickly. You don't understand how those transfers work. I held his gaze. I understand enough. Another pause. Another crack. Because he knew exactly which transfers I meant. And more importantly, he knew I had proof. Sophia's voice cut in again, sharper now. What transfers? Silence. Heavy. Immediate. David didn't answer. Lila didn't speak. All eyes shifted to me. I could feel the weight of it, the moment stretching, tightening, pulling everything toward a single point. I glanced down at the envelope, still in his hands, then back at him. You should show them, I said softly. He shook his head immediately. No. But this time, it wasn't resistance. It was fear. And that's when I knew he had finally reached the page he couldn't explain away. He stared at that last page like it was written in a language he couldn't translate. But I knew better. David understood every word. His breathing turned uneven, shallow, like his body was trying to keep up with a reality his mind was rejecting. No, this isn't possible, he said under his breath, barely audible but close enough for me, and unfortunately for him, close enough for Sophia too. Sophia stepped forward again, closing the gap between us. Dad, what are you talking about? Her voice was tight now, the confusion hardening into something else. What's not possible? He didn't answer. He couldn't, not without unraveling everything at once. Instead, he flipped back a page, then forward again, like the order might change the outcome. It didn't. Lila shifted beside him, visibly shaken now. David, you're scaring me, she said. Just tell me what it says. He turned to her, eyes sharp for a second, but there was no authority behind it anymore. Just pressure. I said, give me a minute. A minute for what? She snapped back, the edge finally breaking through. You walk me in here, announce I'm pregnant in front of your wife, and now you won't even explain what's happening? That word wife landed differently this time. He didn't correct her, didn't soften it, because he couldn't. Sophia looked between them, her face pale now. You knew? She asked Lila. Lila hesitated, just a fraction too long. He told me things were complicated, she said carefully, that you two were basically separated. Sophia let out a hollow laugh. We live in the same house. Silence dropped again, heavier this time. And right in the center of it, David stood there, holding proof of everything he had tried to keep hidden. I watched him closely. Watched the exact moment it all started connecting in his head. The documents weren't just exposing him. They were undoing him. His eyes moved faster now, scanning specific sections, numbers, dates, signatures. That part mattered, because David always read the details. And now, the details were turning against him. These signatures, he said slowly, his voice tightening, these are from months ago. I didn't respond. He looked up at me sharply. You said these were routine, just updates. They were updates, I said evenly. Updates to what? Sophia demanded. Neither of us answered her. Because the answer was sitting in David's hands, and he was the only one who fully understood it. At least, he did now. You changed the structure, he said, the realization hitting him in pieces. The accounts, the property, this isn't just a review. He stopped himself. Too late. Sophia caught it. She what? He swallowed, hard, his composure slipping further with every second. This isn't finalized, he said quickly, more to himself than to anyone else. It can't be. I didn't authorize. You signed it, I said quietly. That cut through everything. Clean, precise. He froze. Completely. Because he knew I was right. All those rushed mornings, the stacks of documents he skimmed through, trusting the process, trusting me to handle the details. He signed every single time. Lila took another step back now, physically distancing herself from him. David, what did you sign? He didn't answer her, because now he understood the scope of it. And more importantly, the timing. Those transfers, he said slowly, dread settling into every word, they triggered something. I held his gaze. Yes. Sophia's voice came out almost as a whisper. Triggered what? David didn't look at her. Didn't look at Lila. He only looked at me. Because he already knew the answer. But he didn't want to be the one to say it out loud. You built this, he said, his voice low, strained. You were waiting. There it was. Not confusion. Not denial. Recognition. I didn't smile. Didn't gloat. I just stood there, steady, exactly where he had left me. You were planning a future, I said calmly. So was I. The difference hung unspoken between us. His plan required me to be gone. Mine required him to make a mistake. And he had... Sophia looked between us again, her voice breaking slightly now. Someone please just tell me what's happening. David finally closed his eyes for a brief second, like bracing himself. Then he looked down at the final page again. And when he spoke, his voice wasn't controlled anymore. It was hollow. What happens if I don't agree to this? He asked. I didn't hesitate. You already did. For a moment, nothing moved. Not the crowd, not Sophia, not even Lila. Just David standing there, finally understanding that whatever control he thought he had walked in with was gone. Completely. You already did, I repeated, steady. His eyes searched my face like he was still hoping to find hesitation, a crack, something he could push against. There was nothing there. Explain it, Sophia said, her voice cutting through the silence. All of it. Right now. I turned to her first. Not to him. Because...
So, was this justice or something colder she planned long before he ever walked